Okay, welcome to another Rubber Stamp Show and Tell. I have Rubberstampmadness, January, February 2000. Hard to believe. I just picked this issue out just because of the milestone year here. I was thinking about, I don't know, Y2k and things like that going on at this time, but thought we'd take a look and see what was going on in the stamping industry, and Rubberstampmadness certainly was a pretty good indication of what was going on industry-wide in terms of the different manufacturers, the different conventions, the retail stores, and kind of trends that were happening at any given time in the medium back in those days. So let's take a look through here. I was looking at some of these little images on this cover here. Some of these images were copyright-free styles of designs, illustrations that several companies have, but I have that dancing skeleton here. That I've seen that one in several different catalogs, manufacturers in the past. I have that moon there. I'm pretty sure that one was from Leavenworth Jackson, and I think that's it as far as the ones that I have on that cover, but a pretty cool cover here, real collage-y. I don't remember when collage became really big, or if this was just indicative of the particular artist that was on here, but a pretty milestone book here. She even has 2000 on here, done in 1999. You got to get these things out in the mail, for the publishing, several months in advance back then. But look at this, Personal Stamp Exchange. Boy, that's too bad they're not around anymore. What a fantastic company and product line that company had for so many years back in the day. Penny Black still around, of course. Full-page color ads here. Ivory Coast, Fruit Basket, hooray! Fruit Basket Upset is back. I don't know what that meant. I think it was the line of images was probably purchased. I don't know if they were even around in their original incarnation when I started Stampscapes back in 1993, but they were around when I was working for a Stamp of the Hand company, and they might have even been to the Carson convention, in those, I don't know, real early days, and back in the late 80s when I started working for a Stamp of the Hand. I don't remember them at the show, but I wasn't really familiar with a lot of the different companies that were around. Other companies, besides things that a Stamp of the Hand sold at their things like warehouse sales and whatnot. Stamp Francisco, I think this looks like, I don't know, it looks like these three, I don't remember Stamp Francisco when they sold, if all of these are under one roof. It might be. It looks like this was a kind of a similar spread here in terms of the layout, so I'm guessing it could be when this other entity maybe purchased all of their lines. Color Box and Clear Snap, oh my gosh, too bad they're not around anymore. They had the Color Box Stylus tools, which I really loved, but what a great accessory manufacturer. I don't know if they were the first ones with the raised die-based pads, but they were really early on with their vivid pads right here. And these things are really great pads. They don't even have the the company name is stamped on the bottom, but these pads right here, they were around, and they were kind of here and gone back when all these other companies started manufacturing pads. I don't know if these ones just kind of fell out and they were just doing so much better with their pigment inks or what, but these pads right here, these Vivids, are still working for me, and I don't know, this could be a 20-year-old pad, and this material on the pad is that real kind of spongy foam style, which I really liked, real similar to the Marvy Matchables, but a really great line of inks, and they had a really good line of colors too, a lot of blue tones that I really love in scenic stamping. Okay, let's just start going through this. I start talking about all these things, I get kind of, I don't know, not emotional, but it's just kind of interesting looking back and seeing the companies that have come and gone. Long's Drugs used to carry our stamps. This was a kind of an independent, I don't know what kind of chain Long's Drugs was. I don't know if any of you had a Long's Drugs around you, or if it was just kind of a West Coast or even California type of thing. But Long's Drugs was one of my biggest clients back in the day when I don't know, first few years of the business. D. Grunig from Posh Impressions, of course. What a kind of instrumental figure in the history of rubber stamps and coloring, especially with the kind of the Marvy brush markers on glossy cardstock sheet. That was all about D there with the Marvy pens and whatnot. And I still use them kind of in that same style. As far as like coloring directly onto the stamp and making impressions nowadays, it's a lot of coloring in black ink, outline designs, stamping them out, and then coloring them in after that. Versamark, of course, we still love Tsukineko. You know, Tsukineko has the the Brilliance inks, more kind of a fast drying style of pigment ink. I don't use this one a lot, but I like it for its properties, but in my use, I don't use it as much. I use the VersaFine all the time, though, with the archival oil-based, really fine detailed style of black ink. Okay, going around, Beeswax, always loved their designs, fantastic stuff. Superior. A lot of you don't know Stuart Superior. I don't know if it's Stuart Superior, or if they just changed the name to Superior, but they make a lot of the different stamp pads, not these ones, but for other manufacturers. I'm not even really quite sure, but they do different types of branding, so a lot of it came from Superior, and they used to supply things like wood. And I think a lot of the machines that make stamps, too. Coronado Island used to be this chain, small chain of like 3 or 4 stores out in the Florida area. Unlike Media, now you don't see them advertising in, magazines too much anyway. They were all wholesale. They were a pretty big company at the time. I don't know if they're still around or not. 100 Proof Press, that was always one of my favorite companies, and they're still out there. They've changed hands, I'm guessing, twice since 2000, though, but I always worked with the second owner. I used to see them at the Cincinnati show, and she really liked my designs, and I really liked a lot of theirs, so a lot of times we would do a little bit of a swap, you know. I was buying some stuff, and she goes, "Oh, no, Kevin, trade, you know." I said, "Oh, hey, fine with me," you know. So I get a lot of their stuff, a lot of really fantastic curated grouping of 19th and 20th century engravings, okay? And I liked their, the detail of a master engraver, really, that I don't know, you just don't get anymore. Let's see here, the Stampin' Buzz, different articles on a lot of the different stores and clubs that were going on around the world, I guess. Stamp Your Heart Out. Something about this one. Stamp Your Heart Out in Claremont, California. That was the first place I ever taught a class. I was working for a Stamp in the Hand, and I came out with my nature series of designs, and I taught my first class out there, complete with this little slideshow of kind of my inspiration and where the different elements kind of came from in that initial. No, it wasn't the initial series, but it was kind of a follow-up series that kind of rounded out my initial kind of ecosystem of rubber stamps. But I think Stamp Your Heart Out was I think, if I'm not mistaken, they could have been the first rubber stamp store, retail store, anywhere. Okay, they were before Stamp-A-Barbara and everything. So, although they were early too, but I don't know if there was like a small kiosk of some store somewhere or not. But I don't know. I could be mistaken, but I think it was Stamp Your Heart Out in Claremont. And it was just this real small store, according to them. And then they moved into this larger store, which was still fairly small. And I don't know, we moved tables and everything around to get enough space to teach the class. And I always love that type of thing, when you're in these really small stores. It's very cozy. Wouldn't do that anymore, probably, with the, the pandemic and all that, but just really fun stuff. Printworks, embossing arts, dots. Okay, dozens of terrific stamps, which later turned into Stampin' Up, right? Or is it? Well, this is close to my heart. Or is it close to my heart? I don't know. I get confused about all these different kind of in-home demonstration places that change their name from one thing to another. Okay, but dozens of touristic stamps. Where are they? One of those places right here. Stamp Diego. I live in San Diego now, so they were still down here when I moved down here, but not too long after I moved down here. But one of those stores that was in San Diego, so we call it Stamp Diego. Kind of Stampa Barbara was the first place to kind of go off of that kind of that stamp name, and with the city, and I don't know. Those are always cool. It certainly tells you, exactly what that type of store is and where it's located, though. Sukaneko again. Huh. Corrugator. Paper crimper. Hey, remember those things? Remember those corrugated little twisty things like that? I never had one, but pretty cool. Hot Potatoes. She always used to be on the Carol Duvall show. I don't know. Her name... I can't remember her name right off. I'll remember it at the end of this, but Marvy, still using their stuff. Always loved all their products. I didn't like their early gel pens, but the early gel pens from every company, though, let's face it, a lot of those just didn't work. And I think there was a lot of the early Marvy pens too. They might have worked, in the close to the manufacturing plant or whatever, but by the time they ship those things from overseas and there's pressurized, or depressurization or whatever, a lot of these things just didn't work right out of the gate. The pens these days, though, I'm finding work really good, and they've changed the formulas of the inks. A lot of times it's a lot thinner so that there's less of a chance of it clogging up early on. If I get half, the ink used out of a pen, then so be it. That tells me it's probably years of use, but I don't like it when something just doesn't work right at the gate. But fantastic lines from Marvy. Marvy's always been fantastic. I use all their, their pads, and then you saw the Marvy 1500 series of markers like this. These are perfect ones for coloring your stamps and then inking it. If you go with the kind of the thinner, kind of like brush, well, they call these ones brush markers, but these ones are huge like that. A little bit of frayed on the tip, but hey, that's like a 25-year-old pen that's still working for me. But if you go with the smaller ones, sometimes in the details of things, something like this, it can kind of cause the tip to fray. All right, but these. The thicker tip ones are really fantastic for a lot of coverage, and you don't have to worry about that tip, kind of fraying on you, after one use at least, after 100 uses like that one, then maybe. But, like even this mat here is a Marvy mat, so fantastic stuff. I really love their stuff. Gosh, all these different places, Anticipation, Stampomania, Ornamentum, fantastic line of images. I think that was a lot of engravings as well, and whatnot. Stamping 101, coloring is key. Let's look at the different types of articles they have here. Look at this landscaping type of one right here. This one's landscaping too. It has a real kind of watercolory look to it. Let's see. I don't know, it just says colored with warm tints. It looks like it's colored pencil, though. I love colored pencil scenes. Always loved the colored pencil look. Same thing with, like, pastels, and I like that real loose look. Do I do it? No. But I always love it, though. Like watercolors, it's, I always like that type of thing. Okay, so, let's see here. Picasso Coglioni. Okay, he had Stampland at the time. He was the one that started, Stamp Francisco here. Okay, so Picasso had already started Stampland, so that was another entity there. But look at this, maple wood, northern hardwoods can help. Northern hardwoods. I used to get my rubber stamp mounts. Could be a northern hardwoods here from them. I used to go with, I don't know, I switched wood companies so many different times. And I don't know, they were just really inconsistent. So I switched probably that wood for my stamps at least 4 or 5 times. But Northern Hardwoods, I saw them at a CHA show and had them send me out a few examples, and I liked what I saw. And then I just stuck with them and worked with them for a long time. Oh, this looks really fantastic here. Look, this one is creating clouds. Okay, so this looks like a stamp. Look at that Excalibur coming out of here. A little grayscale looking right there, but isn't that cool? And they used boulders with lichen here for, that's, stamp, my stamp. Right. I don't even know if I have it on my table right here. Oh, there it is right there. I know I saw it. I used this one fairly recently. So this is this right here. Okay. And there I have it stamped out kind of initially. You see that right there? Now this is like a half-page scene, so, this isn't to scale. But look at these clouds here, these masks that they used. Let me see who did this one. Ellen Smock. They're from San Diego. Oh, well, hey. Great stuff. And I don't know, look what she did there. I don't know, that looks fantastic. That looks, getting those kind of shadows on the bottom sides of the clouds. It's something that I don't really do too much, but she has created it here using that. And I think these are masks that she has this placed over the top of it. I don't know, that looks like a stamp though. I don't know, I'm not quite sure what she did. I'm not going to sit there and read this out loud, but I don't know, it's pretty cool. Other heirloom conventions did a lot of their conventions over the years. They give those conventions all around the country. They used to do this doll show. So you'd see these signs, driving in the cities sometimes. There was like the doll convention, okay? And it was always this like fluorescent banner. I used to see those sometimes, I don't know where. I lived in Orange County and LA County. And I'd see those, and then later on I found out that heirloom conventions who put on rubber stamp shows, they were the ones that used to put on the doll show, they told me. So I guess when they started the stamp shows, they stopped doing the doll shows, I guess, or at least their incarnation of it. All right, hearts. This was coming out, they would, Rubberstampmadness would have themes kind of leading into this. So this one would be January, February, and that would come out around that time. So they want to be a little bit of head things. So it was hearts. So a lot of times in the advertisements, you would see hearts in terms of a theme. I wouldn't really go off that too much because, I'm landscape. I might, maybe I'll do something seasonal like for winter, but I don't know. I didn't really abide by that type of thing. Good Stamp Goods. I love their stuff. They were always at the Carson shows and probably the San Jose, the Bay Area shows in California. I don't know if they traveled around to other places. Probably did, but they had retired at some point in time fairly early on. But I have a lot of their, not a lot of their stuff, but I have a few of their stamps. Again, a lot of the engraving types of things. Stamp La Jolla, taught there a couple times. The magic of mesh and mosaics, okay. I was talking about doing mosaics with the tiles, the clay, craft, I forget the name of the new stamp board, but these tiles like this. Now, that's not how they approach something like this. I think they stamped it on a piece of paper and probably cut it into these pieces, and then you kind of display them with a little bit of a separation, like grout, would be in between. But I like to do like a mosaic type of thing, actually with, these like stamp board 1x1 inchy tiles right here, because they're actually dimensional. But can you imagine actually using grout in between this? I guess you could. What a project, though. The difference with paper is you can cut it. You can't really cut these ones, So that's the benefit of that. But it is nice kind of having an actual tile, though. But I should get, or get some kind of, substitution for grout sometime. Rubberama, that was always this is Rubberstamp Convention and Rubberama. Okay, so the Carson show had taken over the Rubberama shows, the San Jose shows, and a couple of the other Bay Area shows at the time. Look at this, Long Beach, the Queen Mary. That was quite a show going on back in the time. There's 3 Carson conventions, and she moved one of them over to the Queen Mary. So quite a venue for a stamp convention. Probably the most unique one. There was another convention that went on in Georgia one time, and it was in stores along this kind of historical strip, I heard that was a fantastic show as well. So really cool location. But the Queen Mary is something, talking about a floating, stamp convention. That went on there for about 2 or 3 years. Stamperosa, not with the house mouses yet, probably. Otherwise, I'm guessing it would be in the advertisement. Paper Inspirations from Montana. Some really great stores and I guess manufacturers came out of Montana. I always liked the idea of my stamps, nature types of things being, sent to areas with, that type of scenery. It was always kind of a nice notion right here. The Tarot card by Kathy Beale. Look at these tarot cards here. Really something. This is 20 years ago, too, By that time, there was a lot of advancement in terms of accessories and things like that. We're not talking about the 80s, late 80s, over the course of a decade, there was a lot more stuff out there and a lot more exposure. 2000s, so that was the early days of the internet. Kind of the early days were around that 96 area where there wasn't too many websites out there. A lot less content 20 years ago on the internet, but you were still able to see it. What a great scene right here. Look at that one. Perfect, picture perfect. Great looking scenery. I think this is all done by one individual. Ann Titsworth from Oregon. Tons of stores out there in that Oregon area, all up and down from, Portland to Medford. A lot more, of course, in the Portland to, say, Corvallis area or something like that. Not too much in southern Oregon, but a lot of great, tons of stores out there. Fantastic. I used to see this figure right here in scenes all the time. I always liked that one. Oh, gosh. Yeah, look at that. Atomic Stamps in Tennessee. Gatlinburg. And it says right here, we've recently expanded. Check our collection of House Mouse. Oh, I guess House Mouse was at the time. Stampscapes and Cling Thing acrylic stamps. I don't know what they are. That's kind of interesting like that. But I recognize the name of that store. Millennial Madness. Okay, I have that stamp right there. That's in a lot of different stamp companies, but look at that. There's that moon again. That's the same one there, I think. It could be slightly different. Some great scenic stamping. Here's another one with that colored pencil look. It could be watercolor pencils, I'm not sure. But look at this, was fantastic. I bet you this piece right here was a submission for potentially the cover. I don't know, it's just so huge, you didn't, see that too much. But maybe they just moved it to an inner spread. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's, the case of this one or not. Real collage-y type things going on. I've seen these characters before. They're always funny. People use these ones in scenes all the time, but they always crack me up. I think there was a name for these figures right here. Oh, this one's titled Y2k Bugs. They actually get a little spin on that. Oh, there's the house mouse right there. Okay. Stamparosa. Taught on Stamparosa once. Fantastic store. What a great company, too. And that house mouse thing, that was big. That was huge. You see those house mouse things everywhere. The new ceramics, interesting. So stamping on ceramics, I take it they were stamping with probably, I'd have to think it was StazOn, unless there was some other type of thing, but I don't know, they're putting ink onto their stamp right there. Maybe it was India ink, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to read through every one of these articles to figure out everything. We'd be sitting here for, a 2-hour video here. Bizarro, always love their stuff. Stores around the, the country. I don't know if there's anything international here. Like Canada, at least. Maybe not. Not at the time, at least. I don't see anything here. And these weren't all the stores. I don't know. I don't know if these were advertised or what. Las Vegas Art Stamps, so there was no Stamp Oasis there in Nevada. So I don't know if these were advertisements or if they kind of mixed it up a little bit, which they might have done, with all these different stores around. But I look at this and I think about all the different stamp stores, independent stamp stores that were around at the time. And I've taught a lot of these ones over the years, Stamp Antonio, a Little Bazaar, I don't know. A lot of these different ones I can, I recognize, just kind of, going down the list here. And always fun stuff. I always loved. I didn't like the time and the travel and stuff like that. Actually, flying back then was a lot nicer, but I really loved teaching classes and doing demonstrations and that. I always joke that I wish I had a Star Trek transporter, to get around wherever you want to. All kinds of little different types of technique, things like this. There were a lot of manufacturers and suppliers, like for rubber and the raw materials and things like that, and stores. This is the ink pad. They're still around in New York City, so I saw some. I've only seen photos of this store, and I don't know what they look like. I think they moved fairly recently, but I'm talking about in the last couple of years or something like that. But it really took me back to what a lot of the stores looked like and were my favorite types. Like, say, in the 80s and 90s, and, just in terms of tons of stamps on the shelves in stores. Not so much accessories, because there just wasn't space for it, but, there's always that smell of stamps when you walked into a place. A lot of it's wood, so that was like an old-time... rubber stamp store, old-time rubber stamp store. A Jungle in Germany by Rice, Freeman, Zachary. I used to see them stamping. So a lot of stampers in Germany. I always tell people this, and I think this is the case here. Okay, here's like the Waterside Bluff left and right from Stampscapes right here, down here at the bottom. But a lot of German, I don't know why in Germany. Maybe it's someone who was teaching, or maybe there's just the landscapes and the natural scenery or something like that. But a lot of them did scenes back in those, like especially in the 80s and 90s, and just I don't know what it was. There was a large percentage of it that was colored pencil. So I saw a lot of colored pencil work coming out of Germany. But look at this beautiful modeling of form in this piece right here. See the shadows and everything like that. And see, this is one thing that, and see that texturing in there. It's rich. There's at least probably 2 or 3 different colors in there. And look at that texturing up there and that transition of dark to lights like that. I mean, this is really fantastic stuff. Look at that shading right here in this tree. I'm sure it was an open tree, and then they just shaded it all up there from the representation of a canopy of leaves up here covering this area of it. But see, this area in here is lit. So it's kind of central lit, so you get this kind of left side of the tree illumination here, and the right side of the illumination on these rocks right here. So it kind of brings the focus, and it composes things like that. But look at this beautiful texturing and the transition of colors right here and tones throughout this piece. So it's really great stuff. I always loved colored. I don't know. You know, I haven't worked with colored pencils very much, if at all. So just fantastic work. I guess maybe these are the artists right here. I don't know. And here's another piece done in the nighttime. You see a lot of the similar images used on this one. Maybe they're all stamping together or something like that, stamping friends and stuff, and they shared their things like that. But check this out. Now, see, a lot of people just wouldn't think to put that type of coloring on that background there. Now that looks like, I'll bet you anything that was a airbrush, but it's not airbrushed with a traditional airbrush. It was probably that Letraset thing where you plug in this pen and it shoots that air onto the tip and you get this kind of pseudo airbrush style of technique, because I can tell because it's kind of splattered like that. I used to do that a lot. They have it with the Copic pens. The Copic pens are going to be much smoother with that alcohol ink. But the Letraset pens, and I used to see that Letraset tool being used at some point in time, because I used to use one in the 80s in high school. So when I saw it kind of come around again and in stamping, you know, sometime in the 90s, I was really happy to see it here. Museum of Modern Rubber. Oh my gosh, love their stuff. Look at this Hero Arts right here. I mean, you know, that'd be still be a fantastic design right here. Here's the Judykins right here. Stamp Out Cute. I remember them. I don't know what that means. It means it was either a cute scene where you're stamping out cute stuff, or you're stamping out cute, you know, where everything wasn't cute. I don't know. Okay, so Mary Kay, she started a stamp camp. Okay, but she used to use Stampscapes all the time. I wonder, was she the one that flew out to take a class for me in Orange County? I don't know if she was the one that her husband worked for one of the airlines, so she can, you know, if there was space on a flight, you know, for the employees, they were able to hop on a plane. So I think she was the one that flew out one time for a class here in back when I was living in Orange County, and she came and took a class there. I think it was that location. Adventures in Stamping, fantastic show. We started doing the April show, and then they kind of added a later one, some in a different town. But the Akron show was always fantastic. Anyway, let's see, Darcy's Country Folk. Yeah, they were always in the room right next to me at the Carson show. Huge. Visual Image Printery, love their stuff. I think Visual VIP, Darcy's, Stampscapes, and then Printworks. Let's just see Printworks over here. We were always in this separate wing over at the Carson show. You know, along with a few other vendors, but you know, for a long time, 5, 6, 7 years, it seemed we were all in the same area. The Moon Rose art stamps. The Moon Rose, is that the same? Well, this is the Rubber Moon. Moon in the Maker. Oh, okay, a different thing. The Moon Rose art stamps. I have one of their images in my collection, and sometimes it's this reclining woman. I always like her doing her in the moonlight, and I said that, well, that's the Moon Rose art stamps, and I think they discontinued it or something like that, or someone was looking for that, I don't know, a couple of years ago. Oh, here's all the other ads in the back here. Imagine Air Designs, I always love their stuff, and I have a couple of their planes. I kind of started getting their stuff after they closed up, though, you know. I know I should have got more. I always say that, though, right? Peddler's Pack, Stampworks. Taught there in their store and saw their whole kind of operational setup there for their stamp making at the time too as well. There were tons of stores in that area. A lot of Hippo Heart Top there. They weren't around too much after 2000. I don't remember. I don't think they were. Classifieds here, you can do things like, I'm selling my collection or something, or looking for whatever. You can put a, little ad in the back here. There were things like pen pals. There were, some people did like a Stampscapes kind of exchange group. In the back here, some people were saying, hey, send some birthday cards to my, it's going to be my mom's 90th birthday or something, it would be great to fill up her mailbox with a bunch of cards or something like that, or, and whatnot. You can do all kinds of things. It was really kind of fun, You can still do that, I'm sure. Back issues for sale, whatnot. Stamps by Judith here. We still see her at the different shows, Gumbo Graphics. I have that image right here. He was always one of my favorite companies. I have a bunch of his designs. Marco's Paper is still around, I look for them for like glossy cardstock and whatnot. I didn't see my ad. I don't know where it was in here. Curtis's collection. I did a catalog review of Curtis. He passed away. Someone put a note up on that piece that I did for that. But yeah, I don't know. Did I miss my own ad in here? I don't know. If I did, maybe it didn't stand out to me or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, Rubberstampmadness. All right. I took forever on this thing. I thought it was going to be like a 10-minute vid, but that'd be flipping through it. But it just comes to show you just how much... Yeah, there was a lot of information and content back out there in those days, in terms of both on the manufacturing and, like I said, supplier, everything within the ecosystem, conventions, stores, users of the stamps. You saw it international. There was Germany represented in here, and, domestic and everything going on at the time. So, I don't know. There was just a lot of stuff and a lot of fun stuff. Back then, still fun stuff out there. There's still, I don't know, I'd say as much or more different accessories out there available to us at this time, and a lot of things that haven't even started being used at this time back in 2000, like, like alcohol markers and like Copic markers and whatever, that became big at some point in time. Not too, long, soon after, or long after 2000, I think. Must have been around that, it must have been around that time, because I don't know if too many people were using those things at that time, but the markers were out at the time. They just weren't, you didn't see it in the consciousness of the stamping public. But anyways, just really great stuff, and I don't know, yeah, it's fun to go back and look through these types of things, and I don't know, take you back to, some of these things still look fairly current, and some of them, we realize just how long some of these things have been gone for. All right, so anyways, if you have any comments, did you recognize, some of these different companies out there that are, that you're still using and stuff, or some of the ones that have come and gone, or did you used to go to some of these different shows or stores that were around at the time? Any fun memories and whatnot of, I don't know, anything that we covered in this magazine? Put it down in the comment section. Always kind of curious to hear from kind of my fellow long-time stampers, and also kind of really nice to hear of new stampers, or relatively new or whatever. And what are your thoughts on some of the things you saw in here? All right, so anyways, thanks again, and until the next video.